Welcome to today's explainer. Look, we're doing something a little different right now. We are opening up a highly classified case file, Area 51. Deep in the Nevada desert, completely surrounded by these rugged mountains, warning signs, and literally armed guards, lies one of the most enigmatic locations on Earth. For decades, this secret military base has been the absolute epicenter of stories about strange lights in the sky, huge government cover-ups, and, of course, extraterrestrial spacecraft. But as investigators, we have to pause and ask ourselves, what is the actual, verifiable truth hidden behind those chain link fences? In this explainer, we're adopting a strictly scientific lens. We're going to separate the verifiable desert reality from the towering extraterrestrial mythology, and we're going to evaluate the claims with objective logic to see what the data actually tells us. Okay, let's map out our investigation roadmap really quick. We're going to look at the Groom Lake anomaly, evaluate the aerial evidence, dig into the Roswell and Lazar claims, uncover the true cost of secrecy, and finally, analyze the government's declassification.
Section 1. The Groom Lake Anomaly, Cold War Origins.
To really get to the bottom of this, we need to establish a factual baseline. The timeline of Area 51 begins in the super tense climate of the Cold War. Back in the 1950s, the United States was deeply, profoundly concerned about potential attacks from the Soviet Union. They desperately needed a remote, entirely unobservable location to secretly develop advanced biplanes. And they found the perfect operational variable out in the Nevada desert, near a dry lake bed called Groom Lake. It was isolated and virtually impossible for the public to access. For years, the government maintained a strict zero acknowledgement policy. It was kept off maps, workers were sworn to absolute secrecy, and commercial pilots were actively warned away from the airspace. We can track this highly classified history all the way from the Roswell incident in 1947, right through the CIA's declassification in 2013, and that massive public mobilization in 2019.
Section 2. Evaluating the aerial evidence. Civilian versus military.
Now, what's really fascinating here is what happens when we juxtapose the civilian reports directly against classified military data from the 1950s and 60s. A wild correlation emerges. During this period, civilians were suddenly reporting glowing disks and silent triangles pulling off impossible maneuvers in the sky. Well, concurrently, the military was using Groom Lake as a testing ground for experimental aircraft, most notably the U-2 spy plane and, a bit later, the SR-71 Blackbird. These were highly advanced machines capable of extreme altitudes and speeds that literally did not exist in the public consciousness at the time. To put that into perspective, imagine you're an everyday civilian observer in 1960 and you see a titanium SR-71 Blackbird tearing through the stratosphere at over Mach 3. To you, that absolutely registers as alien technology. But here's the catch. Even when we factor in the U-2 and the Blackbird as our control variables, certain sightings and massive technological leaps remained incredibly difficult to explain. And this data point right here leads us to the central hypothesis driving decades of conspiracy research. Was humanity truly alone in creating these breakthroughs, or did we have external help?
Section 3. The Roswell and Lazar claims. Extraterrestrial theories.
The modern mythology of Area 51 is inextricably linked to a massive, glaring discrepancy in the military's own reporting back in 1947, centered entirely around the Roswell incident. On day one, U.S. military officials publicly announced the recovery of a flying disc. Literally just 24 hours later, on day two, the official story aggressively pivoted to a crashed weather balloon. Actually, scratch that. It wasn't just a pivot, it was a complete reversal. This conflicting narrative provided the absolute perfect breeding ground for an unverified claim that alien bodies and extraterrestrial wreckage were secretly transported from Roswell direct to Area 51 for covert study. The military's own contradictory data gave this theory the exact oxygen it needed to thrive for decades.
Which brings us to a pivotal moment where the narrative shifted from broad, vague rumors to highly specific claims. In 1989, a man named Bob Lazar appeared on television and introduced the world to S4. This was an alleged, highly restricted black site facility situated just south of the main Area 51 complex. According to Lazar's explosive claims, this was the specific site where government scientists were actively studying recovered alien spacecraft. Lazar's claims centered heavily around the idea of reverse engineering. He vividly described saucers powered by a mysterious element capable of bending gravity itself, suggesting the government possessed multiple alien vehicles and was actively trying to copy their propulsion technology. Now, obviously, we lack the verifiable data to definitively prove this,
But what makes Lazar a really compelling variable in our investigation is that he accurately identified highly classified zones near Groom Lake years before they were ever public knowledge.
And this sparks what's known as the alien tech theory. Believers hypothesize that rapid leaps in late 20th century technology, specifically things like stealth aircraft, fiber optics, microchips, and advanced radar systems, are the direct result of extraterrestrial reverse engineering at Area 51. When it comes to correlation versus causation, the hypothesis essentially assumes this technological leap was simply too rapid and unprecedented for human engineering to achieve all on its own. While there is zero official documentation proving an extraterrestrial origin for something like a microchip, this assumption remains a massive core pillar of the mythology today.
Section 4. The true cost of secrecy. The human impact. Maintaining a black site in the middle of a desert requires some absolutely massive logistical operations. Enter the Janet flights. These are unmarked airplanes that operate daily, transporting civilian and military workers from Las Vegas directly into the restricted facility. Employees undergo incredibly intense security clearances and are bound by legally ironclad non-disclosure agreements. This verified logistical network perfectly establishes just how vast and impenetrable the secrecy apparatus around Groom Lake truly is.
But right here is where we absolutely must contrast the science fiction with the verifiable human impact. Pop culture focuses super heavily on rumors of underground labs, hidden nuclear testing chambers, and cryogenic alien storage connected by these secret tunnel networks. But the objective reality is far, far more sobering. In the 1990s, several former workers filed lawsuits claiming severe, chronic illnesses caused by exposure to unknown toxic chemicals that were burned in massive open pits at the base. Because of the absolute, unyielding secrecy surrounding the facility, national security was literally weaponized to block environmental and labor accountability. It legally prevented workers from even knowing what chemicals poisoned them.
Section 5. Declassification and Global Fiction. Analyzing the monumental 2013 CIA document release reveals what we might call strategic transparency. After decades of outright denying that Area 51 even existed, the government finally declassified documents acknowledging it. The existence of the base? Confirmed. Cold War aircraft testing like the U-2 program? Confirmed. But crucially, any mention of extraterrestrial activity was entirely omitted. The documents said absolutely nothing about aliens. This selective declassification provides a really fascinating data point for our case. The government is perfectly willing to acknowledge the facility now, but they intentionally leave the door wide open for theories about what is still actively hidden in the dark. And that lingering vacuum of verifiable information, that is exactly why Area 51 completely dominates the global psyche. In 2019, this culminated in a huge viral event titled Storm Area 51, They Can't Stop All of Us. What began as an internet joke rapidly mobilized millions, resulting in a literal physical gathering near the base and massive security mobilizations. It provided definitive sociological proof that despite official CIA admissions, public distrust remains absolute. The appetite for the real truth about Groom Lake is just as insatiable today as it was during the height of the Cold War.
So, we've evaluated the timeline. We've looked at the conflicting military reports, the insane technological leaps, and the very real human cost of absolute secrecy. After everything we've gone through in this explainer, I want to leave you with one final logical deduction to think about. If officials systematically lied for decades under the shield of national security, fiercely denying this base even existed in the first place, is it really logical to assume they have now revealed everything? The case file remains open.